Hey there, lovely soul. Welcome back to Noah's Stories. Have you ever walked into the wrong place, only to find exactly what your heart needed? Today's story is about unexpected paths, charming disasters, and the kind of love that sneaks up on you when you least expect it. Let's dive in. Emily Clarke wasn't exactly the type to start her mornings gracefully. On the most important day of her week, the job interview she'd been looking forward to, her heel was bent, her hair stuck to her forehead from the heat, and her resume had a very noticeable coffee stain. But Emily walked as if everything was perfectly under control. The interview location, a small print shop called Bright Copy, not far from the train station. Nothing glamorous, but stable. It offered a paycheck, subway fare, and free coffee, which, in her book, was all she needed. After nearly an hour of walking, Emily stood in front of a modern glass building with a large sign above, Braxton Innovations. Well, this print shop sure went all out, she muttered, fixing her blazer and walking in with as much confidence as she could fake. The receptionist looked her up and down without a trace of a smile. "Emily Clarke, I'm here for the interview," she said, flashing the same smile she had practiced in her bathroom mirror. Without a word, the receptionist handed her a visitor badge and pointed toward the elevators. 22nd floor, room 2203. She rode the elevator with a group of people in tailored suits, mimicking their posture and pretending not to notice the squeaky sound her blazer made with every tiny movement. Once there, an assistant led her into a sleek glass meeting room and asked her to wait. "Mr. Braxton will see you shortly." Emily adjusted her hair and casually tried to cover the coffee stain on her resume. What she didn't know was that she was about to meet a man who could unravel every ounce of logic she had and change her life with a single question. The door opened, and Emily saw the most serious-looking man she had ever encountered. Tall, sharply dressed, with a tablet in hand, he didn't even glance up as he walked in. "Emily Clarke?" he asked, eyes still fixed on the screen. "Yes, the printing position," she said, her voice jumping half a tone out of uncertainty. Nathan finally looked up, raising one eyebrow. "Executive assistant position." Emily swallowed. "Oh, yes, of course. I'm also very skilled in managing chaotic lives." Nathan stared at her as if trying to decide whether she was joking or just alarmingly honest. "You're in the wrong place," he said. "Bright Copy is the small print shop on the ground floor. This is Braxton Innovations, a global tech firm." Emily looked down at her name badge, then back up at him. "So, this interview? For my personal assistant." She gave a light laugh. "I know how to answer phones, print things, make coffee, and keep meetings on schedule. I also have a certificate in social survival." A pause. Then, unexpectedly, Nathan let out a small laugh. Brief, but enough to warm the room. "You talk a lot, and I listen well. I'm like a human Swiss Army knife, only with a 3-coffee-a-day habit." He rested his chin in his hand, now studying her with interest. "You do realize you just tried to convince a stranger to hire you for a job you didn't know existed 5 minutes ago? That's my specialty, professional flexibility." Another beat of silence. Then he set the tablet down. "Start tomorrow, 8 a.m., executive assistant, office next to mine." Emily blinked. "Are you serious?" "Completely, and don't call me Mr. Braxton, just Nathan." He stood and walked out, leaving Emily there, stunned, surprised, and ever so slightly thrilled. Emily's new job at Braxton Innovations started out exactly like a charming disaster. On her very first morning, she accidentally called the wrong department 3 times, spilled an entire box of paper clips onto the carpet, and perhaps most memorably, slapped a sticky note on her own forehead, labeled "important," while talking on the phone. All of it was done with the kind of awkward confidence only Emily Clarke could pull off. Nathan Braxton, meanwhile, seemed like a man born to live in silence and structure. His schedule was precise, down to the minute, his coffee sugarless and timed for 2 p.m., and his facial expressions suggested that emotions were a threat to productivity. Yet, somehow, since Emily arrived, the silence didn't feel so silent anymore. Everything truly shifted one Thursday afternoon when a call from Nathan's grandmother, Grandma Lily, interrupted a meeting. Her voice boomed through the speaker. "Nathan, you need to date. You're a successful robot, but still a robot. If you don't go on these dates, I'll come drag you out myself." Nathan exhaled in that way only someone entirely defeated by their grandmother can. And then, a reckless idea began to form. That same evening, he called Emily into his office and with uncharacteristic directness asked her to pretend to be his girlfriend for a little while, just enough to keep Grandma Lily from arranging further blind dates. Emily looked at him, suspicious but amused, then leaned back in her chair with a sly smile. "I'm a secretary, not an actress," Nathan replied evenly. "You've been playing the part beautifully since day one." So the deal was made. Emily agreed, but on her own delightful terms. No pet names before 9 a.m. If anyone asked why she loved him, she'd say it was because his quarterly reports were thrilling, and most importantly, he had to learn to smile, at least with his eyes. Nathan didn't argue. He simply nodded, quietly accepting a challenge he couldn't quite predict the outcome of. 1 week later, Emily stood at Nathan's high-rise apartment door with a purple suitcase, a favorite pillow, and a jar of artificial flowers. "Ready for temporary contract wife life," she declared, rolling her suitcase in like she'd done it 100 times before. His apartment was spotless to the point of discomfort, like a showroom for minimalist living. "This place looks like it was measured with a laser," she noted. "Where's the coffee?" "Bottom drawer, sorted by roast level," he replied. "Romantic," she muttered under her breath. Nathan led her to the guest room and told her she could decorate it however she liked, so long as she didn't bring pets or needy plants. "So, my imaginary hamster needs to relocate," she said, unfazed. That evening, they sat at the kitchen table with a notebook, officially creating their house rules. Emily eagerly scribbled, "Knock before entering each other's rooms, wash your own cup, even if it's just water, and if they argued, pause with chocolate or a lighthearted TV show." When Nathan read the last rule, he smiled, his first real one, and just like that, they both realized something neither of them wanted to say out loud yet. Maybe it all started as pretend, but the feelings didn't feel so fake anymore. The pretend relationship plan began with a few dinners, some overly rehearsed conversations in front of Grandma Lily, and glances exchanged with the perfect amount of staged affection. But neither of them expected that the more they acted, the more real it began to feel. Emily remained her spontaneous, charming self, always saying what no one else dared to. Nathan, despite his efforts to stay composed, started smiling more, and not just with his eyes like she had requested. They attended events together like a cover-worthy couple, but behind the polished smiles were tiny, intimate details only genuine feelings could create. Emily always brought a spare tie in her purse after Nathan once spilled coffee before a meeting. Nathan never said anything, but every time she coughed, a cup of ginger tea appeared on her desk the next morning. In the elevator, once Nathan's sacred space of silence, Emily often filled the air with made-up stories. Emily stared at him, caught off guard, not by the words but by the sincerity behind them. For the first time, she couldn't tell if they were still acting or not. Nathan didn't move, neither did she, but in that small, suspended silence, something undeniable passed between them, a tension that no longer belonged to the script. And even though they didn't kiss, the elevator didn't feel like a pause anymore. It felt like the beginning of something they were both too afraid to name. The truth was, Nathan had grown used to Emily's laugh, used to her noisy morning coffee rituals, used to her colorful Post-it notes stuck all over her monitor, and the way she always made the boardroom laugh right when tension peaked. He couldn't say exactly when the pretending had stopped. He only knew that when he saw Emily laughing a bit too long with another male colleague that morning, he felt uncomfortable. And Emily? She didn't expect to memorize every version of Nathan's tense but trying to appear calm face. When their hands accidentally brushed while sorting paperwork, both flinched, but neither pulled away. That was the first time she realized she wasn't acting anymore, not even a little. The harder they tried to follow the script, the further they strayed from it, and somewhere between the lines they found something real, not as co-stars in a charade, but as two people slowly, deeply falling. That night, it rained softly outside. Emily picked a romantic comedy on cable, curled up on the couch with a blanket and a bowl of popcorn. Nathan, as usual, emerged from his office holding a cup of tea, the weariness of the day still visible on his face. "Want to join?" she asked, eyes still on the screen. He hesitated for a second, then sat down next to her. Not too close, not too far, just enough for something to happen. They watched in silence. When the movie reached the part where the main character confessed his love clumsily in an airport, Emily let out a soft laugh. Nathan glanced at her. And then, in the quiet moment that followed, no dialogue, no noise, he leaned toward her. The kiss came without warning, but it wasn't clumsy or hesitant. It was soft, deliberate, the kind of kiss that carried everything unsaid between them. When they pulled apart, Emily didn't speak. Her eyes stayed closed, like she was trying to memorize the warmth, the nearness, the truth of it. When she finally opened them, her voice was just a whisper. "Did we just go off script?" Nathan said nothing, but his eyes answered for him. From that moment, everything changed. Every touch, every look carried weight. They had gone far beyond their roles, but as things became more real, so did the fear. The next morning, as Emily brewed coffee like she always did, Nathan stepped out of his room, dressed sharply as usual, every hair in place. But then he spoke. "Emily, this thing between us, I think it's gone further than we ever intended." She froze, hand resting on the kettle. No questions, no jokes this time, just a quiet nod. "So, I should leave?" she asked softly. "Maybe it's for the best," he replied. She didn't cry, didn't protest. She simply packed the pieces of herself that had made the apartment feel alive, the checkered bedsheet, the fake flowers, the pillow she hugged at night. Before leaving, she placed a note on the kitchen counter. It was a beautiful lie, so beautiful that I wanted it to be true. "Thank you for letting me believe, even if just for a little while." Back in her small apartment, Emily tried to return to her old routine, working, writing content, drinking coffee alone. But every morning, there was a moment when she'd glance to her right, the spot Nathan used to sit during breakfast. As for Nathan, everything grew eerily quiet. His office remained orderly, his schedule precise, but his home felt colder than ever. He opened the drawer beside his bed, the one where he had kept all of Emily's colorful sticky notes, and reread the one with her scribbled handwriting. "Don't forget to remember." And for the first time in a very long time, Nathan understood. Some things, if lost, may never come back again. 3 weeks had passed since the day Emily left. Nathan tried to keep his life running on schedule, but everything felt hollow. His meetings stayed full, the work continued as always, but the laughter that used to fill the office had vanished with the person who once brought it in. Emily, meanwhile, slowly found her rhythm again. She took on a new job at a small startup, where her voice was heard and her presence mattered in a way she hadn't felt at Braxton Innovations. Then, one quiet Saturday morning, both of them received the same message from Grandma Lily. "I need help. Urgent." No plans, no calls, but somehow they both arrived at her house at the same time. Nathan knocked first, his heart racing. Emily stood behind him, holding a bag of fresh bread, uncertain. The door opened to reveal Grandma Lily sitting on her armchair, wrapped in a blanket, holding her usual cup of tea. "What happened, Grandma?" Nathan asked, concerned. She sighed softly. "There's something odd in my bedroom. Can you two check it for me?" As they stepped in to investigate, the door slammed shut behind them. A loud click followed. "Grandma," Emily called out. "The lock's old, sweetie. Might have jammed. Locksmith will be here tomorrow morning," Lily replied, suspiciously calm. Trapped in the quiet of the bedroom with no screens or distractions, there was nothing left to hide behind. After a few minutes of stillness, Nathan turned toward Emily. "I miss you. I didn't think I'd see you again, like this," Nathan said at last. "But maybe the universe knows I'm really bad at not ruining good things." Emily stayed silent, not out of anger, but out of careful listening. "I was scared," he continued, voice lower. "Not of you, but of losing you. You brought things into my life I didn't know how to keep." "And now?" she asked, quietly. Nathan turned to her, no longer guarded. "Now, I want to learn how to keep the things that matter, even if I've messed up, even if you don't trust me the same way." A long pause stretched between them. Emily looked at him, steady, then exhaled. "I never stopped trusting, I just stopped hoping." From his jacket pocket, Nathan pulled out a small box. Nothing flashy, just a soft blue box wrapped in a white ribbon. "There's no perfect speech, just one truth. I can't imagine living without you anymore." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "And if you'll have me, whether we restart or move forward." She didn't let him finish. She walked forward and held him. No more rehearsed lines, no more pretending. Just two hearts, once broken, choosing each other again. 3 months after that fateful night, life for Emily and Nathan didn't become perfect, but it became right. They moved into a new apartment, smaller, cozier. The kind Emily lovingly referred to as neutral territory with a tendency toward chaos. The living room basked in soft morning light, and the cushions no longer sat in a perfectly measured line the way they used to when Nathan lived alone. Coffee was still brewed at 2 p.m., but now it came with a spoon of sugar and a kiss on the cheek. They still argued about who left the pen uncapped or who used the other's favorite mug, but the difference now was no one walked away after a disagreement. They stayed, they listened, and they learned to understand even when they didn't fully agree. The wedding was held in a small garden just outside the city, under golden string lights hung between tree branches. Emily wore a soft, flowing white dress, her hair pinned loosely with a tiny flower by her ear. Nathan, in a simple gray suit, couldn't stop looking at her like he still couldn't believe his luck. Grandma Lily sat in the front row, pink hat and fan in hand, whispering to the person next to her, "I'm not saying I orchestrated this whole thing, but I orchestrated this whole thing." During the vows, Emily said, "I'm not great at long-term planning, but I'm great at loving imperfect people in the most real way. And if I had to make the same mistake again, I'd still walk into the wrong building if it meant walking into your life." Nathan held her hand and replied, "I used to think love was losing control, but you showed me it's about letting go and still being held. You're the most beautiful chaos I've ever known." After the ceremony, they danced their first waltz. Emily stepped on his foot, twice, and they both laughed. That night, they sat on the balcony, fingers laced, gazing out at the still-lit city. Emily rested her head on Nathan's shoulder and whispered, "We went from pretend to forever." And Nathan, without hesitation, answered simply, "And I wouldn't want it any other way." And as the city lights blinked around them, they both knew love, in its truest form, often begins in the most unexpected places.